Hey y'all, today we're going to remove the rear axles on a 1984 C10 two-wheel drive pickup with a 10-bolt rear end. Hopefully this will help y'all out if you need to change an axle, you broke an axle, you got to change a rear wheel bearing, axle bearing. And well, let's get on with the first step and see how to get this thing tore apart. First thing you might want to do is go ahead and chalk the front tires. That's what I usually do. Don't necessarily have wheel chocks, so you can use whatever you need. In my case, I just use a couple big rocks, and that'll secure the front end on it and hopefully keep it from rolling, especially if you're on a hill or anything, and keep the jack, when you start jacking up the rear, it doesn't move and slide on you and end up on top of you or whatever. Alright, we're going to move on to the next step. Alright, the next step you're going to want to do is get the rear of the truck all jacked up in the air, and get you a couple jack stands and put underneath the rear axles. I've already jacked this and put it on the jack stands, but I will show you exactly kind of what you do here. Alright, what I do is I stick the jack stands right there under the rear axle. As you can see, they're just right there. They go on the tube there and they fit real nice, and they'll hold that nice and secure. Get you a bucket also. Stick underneath the pumpkin ball there, the differential, and that way whenever you pull that cover off, you can catch all that gear oil and it doesn't go all over your driveway and make a big old mess. At least that's the plan. Alright, let's get on with the next step. Alright, next step you're going to want to do is go ahead and get these lug nuts off here. These are a 5-lug pattern. It's a 5-on-5 is what they call it on these old C10s like this. It's 5 lugs, and they measure 5 inches across, and that gives you a 5-on-5 pattern. My lugs are a 13/16, so I'm going to use an impact gun and a 13/16 deep well socket. It's not necessarily an impact socket because I don't have one, so this seems to work pretty fine. I haven't broke it yet, so here we go. Alright, now that we've got all the lug nuts off, we're going to go ahead and grab the wheel and just pull it off. Just like that. Now we're going to go ahead and go to the next step. Alright, so now you got the wheel off. We're going to go ahead and pull the drum off. Since you're here already, just grab a hold of it. Mine come off pretty easy. They're not always that easy, so hopefully you'll be lucky and get off as easy as mine came. And if not, you want to take you a mallet or something and kind of hit around it and try and loosen it up and just work it till it comes off. It's also a pretty good time to go ahead and check out your brakes while you're here in the area. Check your pads, see what the wear looks like on them. Check your springs, make sure nothing's broken. Check your wheel cylinder. Just right here. It's your brake wheel cylinder. That's what pushes your pads out whenever you apply the brakes. A lot of times these will start leaking. Just go ahead and check that and make sure nothing's wet in here or anything like that. This one here looks pretty good. Pads look pretty good. No leaks. So we're going to go ahead and go to the next step. We'll see you there. Alright, so here we are. We're underneath the truck. We're right here at the differential cover. I have my drain pan. I actually swapped my bucket out for a drain pan. It's a little wider, catch some fluid. There's actually probably not going to be too much fluid comes out of mine because I have already drained it the other day since I said my rear end had went out, and I was just verifying that, and I put the cover on just so it didn't leak. It kind of sat in the driveway until I had time to get to it. But anyways, so you'll have a lot more fluid come out of yours than it's going to come out of mine. What you're going to do is once you're under here, like I said, you don't have to use air tools, but I recommend them. I really like them a lot. It makes stuff a lot faster and easier. But I am using a 3/8 air ratchet. I'm using a 6-inch extension, and it's a 1/2-inch socket. These are 1/2-inch bolts. What you're going to do is go ahead and just remove all these bolts. Like I said, make sure your drain pan is in place, because when you start pulling this all out, it's really going to start leaking. I usually start on the bottom here, come around to the top, leave the top one for last. That way you can kind of pivot it on that one. Let it pull it out, let it drain a little bit, go from there. Alright, here we go. Alright, so here I am at the last top bolt. By now yours is probably really dumping the fluid out of it, the gear oil, because like I said, I'd already drained mine, but I'd save this last bolt for last. Just kind of loosen that up. See the cover kind of drop, you see the fluid start to come out a little bit. And I just pull this cover out like that right there. See, I can just pivot it, and that'll let it all drain out real nice. Now this differential and rear end is a 10-bolt GM rear end. It's possible you could have a 12-bolt in yours. All that means is I have 10 bolts around here, and yours would have 12, and it's probably going to have a bigger ring and pinion gear in it, or a bigger ring at that. But anyway, once we get this cover off, we'll be able to look inside and see what's going on, and we'll go to the next step. Alright, so now we got the cover off here. Here's your differential, and this is your ring gear. Yours may look a little bit different. Mine has a posi unit in it. You can see this S-clip in here. It holds the spider gears and your clutches. So this is a good working posi in this. Now the next step you're going to want to do is you're going to want to rotate that. I probably wouldn't turn it. You can do it by hand like this, but you don't want to get your hand jammed up in here. So I usually just grab the yoke and turn it. Now I have my drive shaft off. If yours is not off, you could just put your vehicle in neutral. Do the same thing. Just grab drive shaft and turn it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this until you see that bolt right there. And this bolt, let me go ahead and zoom in on that a little bit. Alright, this bolt right here, okay, is kind of a stop bolt. It holds this pin in place. Okay, now that pin right there goes through your differential. It's hard to see in here, I know. But there's a pin, you can see that shiny pin going right through the middle of this thing. And on the ends of it is your axles. Okay? And when your axle slides in, and that pin is in there, it stops your axle from coming in anymore. So what we're going to do is pull that bolt out, slide that pin out, and then we'll be able to push our axle in farther to get the clips out of it, to release the axle to pull it out. And I'll show you that here in a minute in the next step. Okay, y'all. Mine is a 5/16 socket. Just go ahead and loosen that up. I've already kind of cracked mine loose there. Just going to want to pull that out. I am using a wobble extension. You're just going to want to pull that bolt right out of there. Get it out of your way. Then we'll move on to the next step. It's about what it looks like right there. Just have an idea of it. I'm going to stick that in my hardware bucket here. I'm kind of keeping track of everything. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and rotate this down a little bit. See that pin sliding out? There you go. Slides out just that easy. And that bolt we just took out slid right through that hole right there. So when you screwed that in, the longer shaft with no threads slid right through here, went in, locking it in place, holding your axles right where you need them. We'll move on to the next step now. Alright, we're back on the outside of the truck now, out from underneath it. And now that you've got that pin slid out of there, it releases your axles. So you're going to want to come over here to your axle on the outside where your wheel would mount and just push in on this. And it should slide in. See how that slid in? Just slid in a little bit. And now it's pushed in, and I'll show you what happened underneath. Let's go back down under the truck to the differential, and we'll look at the next step. Alright, we're back under the truck at the rear end. And here we go. This is what happened. When you push that in, this piece right here is the end of your axle. I hope you can see that good. I'm trying to get a good shot of it. It's kind of buried in here. Okay, so this is your axle. You can see these splines in here. That's the splines on your axle. And this clip, when you push that in, is what you just released. It usually sits back in your differential here. And sorry about the movement. But whenever we push that in, to push that clip out so that we can move it around a little bit. You see it moving? And that's what holds your axle from coming out of the vehicle. So the pin that went through held it from sliding in, and this clip keeps it from sliding out. So next thing we have to do is try and remove this clip. Alright, y'all, we're going to go ahead and try to get that clip out of here. I'm just going to use a standard screwdriver. I'm gonna turn my headlamp on. It may hopefully not blind you too much, so I can see what I'm doing. It's gonna go in here, and I know it's gonna be hard to see, but it's hard for me. Here, let me just work it out a little bit. All right. Now what I'll do, I'll see if you can come in here and see if you can see that. Here, let's try a different angle here. All right, there's the clip. I'm trying to keep the shadow, and I just basically slid it out. You slide that out just like that right there. Grab a hold of it. There it is. Looks just like that. No big deal. And I'm just gonna go ahead and stick that right in my parts bucket. And now the axle should be free to come out. And there it is with no clip on it. Let's go ahead and do the next step. All right, y'all, next step is I did place a drain pan underneath this too, just in case when you pull the axle, any kind of gear oil or anything comes out. I don't like it on my driveway. I don't know if you care, but I don't like it on my driveway, so I like to keep it clean. So I got this pan right here, and you just grab this axle here. It should slide out real nice for you. You want to keep that nice and as straight as possible if you can. It's going to have a little weight to it. There's the gear oil coming out, and that's why I like the pan there. You can even take a rag, wrap it around this axle like this, and as you pull it out, let's go ahead and wipe that grease right off. Gear oil, sorry, it's not really grease. But now that's just coming out of there, and now everything went right in the pan. Your axle's out. That's what it looks like, and here's the spines in the end where the C-clip was when we were underneath the truck. That's it. Wipe it down. Move on to the next one. And hopefully the other side goes just as smooth. You don't want to get too much of this gear oil here if you can avoid it. I'm just going to stuff that rag in there for now, just to kind of try and slow it down a little bit, and keep that from going all over hopefully my brake pads. It is just draining down past them, right in between them, but never a good thing to have gear oil on your brakes. All right, now on the other side, I couldn't really get my screwdriver in there as good as I did on the other, so I used a pair of 45-degree needle nose pliers. You probably could use regular needle nose pliers if you wanted to. I just happen to have these closest to me, and I do like the 45s. They're really handy. And I just use those to go in there and get a hold of it. You know, you can use your hand and kind of, mine is a posi, so it has this S-clip in the way, and you may not have as much trouble, but there it is. Comes right out. And turn the light off so I don't blind y'all. There it is, just like the other side. Throw that back in my hardware bucket just like the other, and I'm going to push the axle out just a little bit here, and then I'm going to go on the outside and remove the axle just like we did on the other one. Here we go. Alright y'all, here we are on the other side, and here's our axle just like we did on the opposite. Just going to go ahead and grab a hold of it. I do again have a drip pan underneath just to catch any kind of fluid. Just kind of wiggle it. Got my rag. Stick it on there and just kind of try to keep that straight if you can. It's kind of hard sometimes, but this side I'm not getting as much gear oil out of. And the reason for that is my truck's actually leaning towards the driver's side, so when I pulled that out, it wanted to drain all the fluid that's in the tube out that side, and that's why we got so much fluid out of that side. Just wiping this off a little bit. Set that axle down. Oh, this seal looks good over here. Looks like it had been, actually this wheel bearing looks like it had been replaced here recently, just for the fact of it's clean and the rest of it isn't. That's something you're going to want to, you know, if you're changing your axle or pulling it out, and you might be doing it for a wheel bearing. This is a good time to check your wheel bearings and probably just go, they're not real expensive. You might just want to go ahead and change those out since you're right here with your axle out. If you had a broken axle, could have tore it up anyways. But that's it, guys. That's how you remove your axles. on a, well, this is an 84 C10 two-wheel drive. It's a 10-bolt, 8.5-inch rear end, which means it has an 8.5-inch ring gear on it. It's a 10-bolt. Mine is a posi. Like I said, yours may be open or whatever, so it may be a little different inside the differential, but the removal with the clips on the axles and everything should be exactly the same. But I hope it helped y'all out, and we'll see you next time.